Hello, everyone. My guest today is Chris Cowles. He's passionately curious to make business simpler while respecting context. He's ex-Amazon, where he redesigned the purchasing process within AWS, and former management consultant specializing in business and technology strategy. He studied economics and has an obsession with behavioral economics, now building a company called BlockNify.com, a SaaS digitalization platform without private data. Chris, you ready to take us to the top?
Yep.
All right. So what does that mean? SaaS digitalization without private data?
Yeah, so what we're really doing is changing how SaaS works. Typically, what you see in technology is first comes the functionality, second comes the security. What we're doing is pushing that forward in SaaS, where we're able to provide the same benefits of SaaS with the security, privacy of on-premise.
So what do you mean? Are you selling to people selling SaaS companies, and then they can tell their customers that their data is more secure?
No, so we provide a full SaaS solution for signing documents and managing approval processes, liken it to like DocuSign. But the problem in Europe is that this data is very sensitive. If you think of contracts, that's pretty much everything that comes in and out of your business. And so companies here can't do it. What we do is we process the same SaaS solution that they have, but we never can see your data. We can't view it. We can't modify it. We can't delete it.
Okay, got it. So DocuSign, but more secure version can be used around the world.
Yeah. And the difference is it's not just more secure, but it's absolutely like tightened up to the point where we actually can't do it ourselves.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think
so
what
help me understand kind of like pricing here, right? So what's an average company going to pay you per month to use the technology?
Yeah. So it's based on usage for the documents going through. So we look at like, I don't know, $1.50 to $2 per document going through our system.
Okay. And then take that to actual customer level for me, right? So I don't have to do the math. An average customer is going to pay you what per month?
Yeah, so we average out to be $120,000 for enterprise customer with a approval process running through ourselves at a yearly revenue.
Okay, so the average customer, when you look at your current paying customer base, they're paying about $10,000 a month on $120,000 ACV accounts.
Exactly.
Or contracts. Okay, great. And then put this on a timeline for me. When did you launch? What year?
We launched last year in March, almost. Yeah.
2018. And then how much money did you spend before your first kind of dollar in revenue building the MVP?
How much did we spend? About like 50,000, I guess.
Okay.
We're lucky to be, we're in Prague. I relocated from Seattle to Prague because the cost of living here is very cheap. And we also have a team in Kosovo. Okay,
very cool. So your first dollar of revenue was in what month?
That was in August.
August of 2018. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so tell me about early customers, right? First 10 customers are the hardest. Where'd you find your customers?
Yeah, so luckily my co-founder he's been in blockchain applications for a long time. And so we had a connection into a bank. And so our first customer was a bank here in Europe. And then from there, we went into this Swiss Stock Exchange Accelerator, which allowed us to have access to those type of customers. And mostly that's been very difficult. Financial services is super hard to actually bring into production, bring into a sale. So now we're looking, and most of our growth is actually coming from software startups like ourselves.
Okay. Well, how are the software startups paying $120,000 a year?
No. So that's what we did. We pivoted for the initial traction to go towards the signature service, and then we have an approval process. But the approval process is really the heart of the thing. We have customers, like I said, in the financial services, but the problem is that closing those are very hard. So there are very few. We have a lot of conversations open, but closing them is very difficult. So to diversify our pipeline, we added just a signature service, which allows software services or like individuals to sign documents.
Okay, and what does that cost per month on average?
It's about that's just $1 per signature. So let's say you have 1,000 customers coming in, like a tokenization of real estate. It's probably around 500. So it's $500 a month.
Okay, yeah. But so again, I don't want to have to do the math in terms of your customers, your self-serve ones, how many signatures they're getting every month. So again, in your self-serve cohort, it's $500 a month.
Yeah. That's what it is right now in our cohort.
I see. Okay, got it. That makes sense. And is it actually mostly real estate, or was that just an example you gave?
Tokenization of real estate is actually popping up mainly because we're a blockchain company as well. So it kind of separates the competition from us, but it's been pretty beneficial.
And so how many customers are you serving now today?
We've got 10 customers.
Okay, 10 customers. And that's across the self-serve plus the enterprise deals.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So, can I take 10 times $500? You're doing about $5,000 a month right now in revenue?
Uh, I wouldn't say that, but yeah, sure.
Well, those are the two numbers you just gave me. You said $500 ARPU and 10 customers. So I'm multiplying your numbers.
Yeah. Moving in, like, these companies are not necessarily always in production. So it's not so much recurring revenue all the time. With
I
all
see.
Those customers.
So, I mean, when do you think you'll break $5,000 a month in revenue, like consistently?
Consistently. Yeah. So our hope is probably within the next 2 months. Right now, we have the platform going. We've onboarded our customers and they're using it in production. And then now it's just expanding that out and getting them in there, paying and actively using it at a time.
Yep.
That's been the difficult thing. You work with these companies and startups, they have their own, release cycles and their own production issues. And then, you have the banking side, which is even more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So the first 10 customers came from banking, then a self-serve model you opened up. Now, did you do a token issuance to raise capital?
No, I'm not a big fan of, I'm definitely not a big fan of the ICOs. I'm a fan of STOs, but we haven't gotten that over yet.
So have you raised any capital in the company to date?
We raised some friends and family, and we're actually looking to close a round here soon.
Okay, so how much have you raised from friends and family?
Just 55,000. Well, more than that, 80,000.
Okay, so kind of 80,000 friend and family round, and then you're trying to do, what is it, a seed or Series A now?
No, a seed, about 600K.
Okay, and is that, you think you'll do that on like a note, or would they be a priced round, do you think?
It's a little bit, we're trying to go note. It's a little bit difficult here. Notes are very common in the US. Here, it's a little bit more difficult with the VCs. They don't necessarily like it, and that's been a pain point right now.
Yeah. When you have conversations with them, right, you're basically still pre-revenue, right? What story are you telling them to try and convince you to give them, or them to give you 600 grand?
Yeah. So we have really good traction within our corporate clients. It's more getting into production. So we tell that story about the conversations we have, the fact that they want our products. It's more about getting them into production. It's the more difficult thing. So that's a really good story to have in itself. And then secondly, it's where the market's going. And privacy is just becoming more and more of an issue inside the US, but it's already an issue here. And then the e-signature market's huge. And the biggest competitor we have is in-house solutions. And that's a pretty good selling point as a SaaS solution.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean in-house? Wouldn't your biggest competitor be like a non-private or like a DocuSign?
No. No. So out of 8 out of 10 banks that we've talked to, they can't use DocuSign. The only way they can use DocuSign is they use on-premise. These are like Swiss companies, these are European banks.
Yeah, but I bet DocuSign sells an on-prem solution.
Exactly. But the price point at an on-premise solution, not just for the price of the software, but also maintaining it, is significantly high at the point that these banks are like, this is not worth it unless we move all these processes onto the on-premise. And they're not willing to make that jump, nor do they want to.
So instead they try and build their own version of DocuSign in-house that's private. Isn't that just as expensive?
No, because what they're doing is building for particular use cases. So they're only doing it for this. And so they can digitize one process, but they're just nearsighted. They're not really looking at the long-term costs of actually doing that for each one. And that is just a typical consulting project that they outsource.
Got it. What's your team size today? How many folks?
We have 5 people.
5 folks. Very good. And then do you have any churn? Anyone? I mean, look, this isn't, in my opinion, like you said earlier, your revenue is extremely lumpy, which is not what a SaaS company should be, which tells me you haven't figured out a way to get people actively using you every month consistently. And in fact, using you more month over month. Like, why is that? Why are people starting to use you and then not using you as much next month?
Yeah, well, I think it's a byproduct of signatures themselves, right? So like you may sign documents, but you're not going to sign enough documents to be a customer, right? And so there's life cycles in that area. And the key thing that we're missing, and which is a little bit more difficult in Europe, is the fact that it has to do with appropriate use case, but that has to do with legislation. But legislation here is different for every country, right? And so we haven't found kind of our beachhead use case where we can really drive in. For example, DocuSign did it with real estate agents. They just murdered that market, and then they got to the very top with the Realtor Association. We haven't found a like system where we can actually find people who are willing to pay for signatures at these individual rates to build up that momentum. I think we're getting close there. We've hit a lot of dead ends, and we've done a lot of mistakes, but I think we're very close to that edge. And I think that's what people are seeing in that company.
How, I mean, obviously the trick is, do you have enough money to keep running experiments to eventually find the solution, right? Fail 1,000 times. So how much are you burning per month right now?
Oh, yeah. So we keep that real low. At this moment, we're only burning like $4,000 a month.
Okay, 4,000 a month. Now you've raised 80,000. So I mean, do you still have enough runway in the bank to go a couple months?
Yeah, we'll make it work for sure.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Are you paying yourself?
Not right now.
Okay.
We used to.
So like, how are you? Someone listening will go, man, I'd love to not pay myself and take a risk on a company, but like I have kids and a wife and like expenses. So how are you able to not pay yourself and survive?
Yeah, I think this is one thing that I did right. Moving to Prague makes it work better. This software was a little bit harder to make than we thought. So bringing that into production was more difficult. It took a lot longer than we expected. But here, I mean, people educated with college degrees live off of $1,200 a month. So the fact is, my savings could last me when I'm here. And I think that's the benefit of going into these other areas that are significantly cheaper. I couldn't do that in Seattle.
So where were you? Oh, you were in Seattle. You were in Seattle with AWS.
Yeah. And then I moved to Prague 2 years ago.
Got it.
For this particular reason, to start a company. Not necessarily this company, but to start.
Did you just fly out randomly, or did you have a connection or know somebody?
No, yeah, my family is technically Czech. I don't know if that's really true, but I don't know anybody here. I showed up. I was like, just walking around, met somebody, ended up meeting a girl. She's not Czech, but she's lived here for 10 years. And that's made things a lot easier.
So you update your Tinder profile and say, looking for a room. Is that what you did?
We met at a restaurant. It was like the craziest experience ever, but it definitely, and her being an immigrant to this country made it so much easier because she knew how to navigate. She knows the language as well. I can't speak a word of Czech. It's a very, very hard language. So I've been blessed in that way. But it's a great country. It's got a lot of talent. It's got a lot of other startups. And it's really cheap to live.
Very cool.
And then having a connection to Kosovo makes it even cheaper.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, let's wrap up with the famous five. Number one, what's your favorite business book?
Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Not at this moment. I don't have time.
Number three, what's your favorite online tool for building your company?
I love HubSpot. I think that's a blessing.
Number four, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
I make it a routine of 8 hours.
Okay, and how old are you?
I am 31.
31. And situation, married, single, kids?
Single.
Okay. And last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
To do more. Just do things. Fail as much as possible.
Guys, do more. BlockNify.com. Again, think of it like DocuSign, but a private, more secure version. They've got 10 customers that pay anywhere between, call it $500 a month. Working on some enterprise deals that are in the $120,000 ACV range, but haven't closed any of those yet. Again, working on it. They raised $80,000, burn in, call it $4,000 a month with their team of 5 as they look to scale from Prague. Chris, thanks for taking us to the top.
Thank you, man.